There's always already so much extraordinary energy and hope and passion in this room. And I thank all of you who are present for that, and particularly our last two speakers. Thank you. Especially I want to thank Sharon O'Halloran. It's just such a privilege to be here today at the Safe World Summit and to speak alongside of so many influential women and men. It nourishes me as the only independent woman at the Irish cabinet table. And you know, actually, I was thinking about how during the repeal referendum, that one of the things that was said to me was that I was a witch. And you know, and I think that came up because many, many years ago in one of my past lives, I wrote a book called The Hope for Wholeness, A Spirituality for Feminists. And in there I record some of the stories of bringing Starhawk, who is an American witch, to Ireland. This was over 30 years ago. And we stood in circles and we did rituals, very similar to what you saw in the video earlier this morning. And so it's wonderful to be here now to continue that kind of ritualizing. But when I was named a witch, it didn't stop me. It didn't silence me. Instead, my voice got louder for repeal. I want to congratulate you all on the work that you've done to bring the summit to fruition. And I want to commend acknowledge, bow to the speakers before me for their moving and empowering testimonies. One of the key things that I will take away from these women is their resolute resilience in the face of tragedy. This is not unfamiliar, and I am reminded of the collective trauma experienced by so many among us in Ireland in the recent past. And in my own role as Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, I have met with many people who have experienced tremendous difficulties, loss, or trauma in their personal lives. And I know myself the challenge and the opportunity, and many times it doesn't feel like an opportunity, to practice the habit of resilience, to cope, to recover, to discover, as Edith has just said to us, to adapt in the face of adversity or trauma and tragedy, to keep on keeping on, to keep placing one foot in front of the other, or as Kathleen said, to make the choice to live, or as Edith said, to live in the present. So while we cannot change what has happened, I hope that through compassion and a resolution for lasting change, we can ensure that the Ireland of the past remains in the past. And that together we draw on our remarkable collective capacity to image the possible. To image the possible, which is an extraordinary phrase, and it's a phrase that my spouse used often, which is why I put it on her gravestone. To image the possible, to rear a generation of children without violence, and to wake from the domination trance, which is what you'll be hearing later from Dr. Rian Eisler, to make our country safe. So for those among you who are still in pain, my blessing is this for you. May you be safe. May you be whole. May you be well in relation. We gather in Dublin at a key moment in terms of Ireland's response to domestic violence. It's a hopeful time, more so, even more so because of this day and tomorrow. But hope was also sparked by the new Domestic Violence Act of 2018, which is due to be commenced in the new year. This act represents a shift It's a change of focus in terms of how the issue of domestic violence is being viewed. And may I say, though it was passed by politicians in the houses of the Oireachtas, it is clearly because of your advocacy, your commitment, your passion, your generosity and love that we were able to do that. One of the main elements is the inclusion of a new crime of coercive control. And this is psychological abuse in an intimate relationship that causes fear of violence or serious alarm or distress that has a substantial adverse impact on a person's day-to-day activities. It is important that we send a clear and consistent message that the use of control by one party in an intimate relationship, even nonviolent, is a criminal offense. Overall, we are seeing a switch of focus away from the traditional approach where those who protect women and children responded to single incidents of violence. And as a result, only cases where the most severe physical violence is inflicted on a woman came and still comes before our courts, and therefore to the attention of the wider public. And this led to the myth that domestic violence is only about physical abuse. It also leads to a general lack of awareness about the levels of domestic violence and, more importantly, the harms inflicted on women and children. As a society, we need to understand that most of what happens in abusive relationships is not in and of itself criminal, but that women tell us that the greatest harms inflicted upon them and their children are the result of an ongoing reign of intimidation, isolation, and control. If a victim of a kidnapping were subjected to similar treatment by their captors, we would quite rightly be outraged and demanding that justice must be done. So that is the approach which is needed. The introduction of a new crime of coercive control is a concrete step towards recognizing the harm which is being done in many families. It allows our Gardaí and other frontline agencies to act when a pattern of abuse is discovered, and not to have to wait for evidence of a single violent incident. It's also an acceptance that coercive control as a form of domestic violence is almost entirely perpetuated by men against women, with whom they are or have been in an intimate relationship. Of course, getting the legislation right and in place is one thing, but ensuring that it has the desired impact is another. So it's important that our Gardaí are equipped with the experience to identify coercive control. I see a couple of you in the audience. And to be skilled to gather the evidence that brings abusers to justice. We must ensure that the crime is consistently and effectively being responded to. So, this will require training. And when the Gardaí are able to place solid evidence before the courts of the strategies abusers employ to dominate their partners, then the judiciary will be equipped to convict and impose sentences. This, in turn, increases awareness and changes public attitudes. So if we get this right, then there's no reason why the new legislation could not have a similar impact in the sense of changing behavior in the same way as our smoking bans or seatbelt laws have done in the past. Domestic violence profoundly affects the physical, emotional, and social well-being of individuals and families. And as minister, of course, I am particularly concerned for the welfare of children in the home where domestic violence may occur. And international research confirms that a very significant proportion of child abuse referrals are from situations of violence in the family. This can impact right into adulthood and lead to addiction and mental health problems in later life. So, We must do everything to ensure that children affected by domestic violence are provided with the supports they need to overcome these traumatic experiences. And we know that if left unchecked, the effects of domestic violence can be far-reaching. So we must be conscious of the fact, though, that coercive control of a child can also continue post-separation. There is a need for skilled assessments to distinguish between situations where there is ongoing coercive behavior and ones where there is not. Too often, there is an assumption that once separation between the parents happen, that the domestic violence is in the past, it's over, it's history. This is often not the case. Even if the primary target is now beyond the reach of the abuser, a child or children can become the focus of those and these coercive, frightening, and manipulating behaviors. So in order to prevent this, we must embed an understanding of coercive control within the courts, state institutions, and frontline agencies. I think this is what will have the potential to transform the landscape in which decisions then about post-separation contact with children are made. Just want to say a couple of words about TUSLA. Too often we've witnessed the heavy price that women and children pay not being cared for in the way they should expect and deserve. Good progress has been made, but it has been hard-won. We have stronger laws, better support services, but we still need to do more as a society to tackle this very challenging issue. And in this country, TUSLA, the Child and Family Agency, continues to build on available services, especially in the area through its prevention, partnership, and family support program. And in 2018, we are providing 23.8 million euros in funding for TUSLA in the area of domestic, sexual, and gender-based violence. And I'm pleased to confirm today that this figure will increase to by 1.5 million euros next year. And what does this money do? Well, currently a network of some 60 organizations provide services to victims of domestic, sexual, and gender-based violence, including 16 rape crisis centers, 20 services providing emergency refuge accommodation to women and children, and 24 community-based domestic violence services. Most of you are here today. Thank you for your extraordinary commitment and generosity and love. Indeed, it is because of you that we do have the hope for a safe Ireland. And again, I'm so privileged to be here with you. I'm delighted that work will be completed too in the coming months to enable Ireland to ratify the Istanbul Convention, which is crucial to ensure that those who experience violence in the home or elsewhere are provided with the care, protection, and consideration that they deserve. So to conclude then, today we gather at a historic venue. It's the home of our first doll. It is where a century ago, our ancestor, Countess Markievicz, took her seat as the first female minister in Britain and in Ireland. So if we listen to the words of Kathleen and Edith and all of others who will be speaking and share in a way that will clearly bring about the motivation, the solidarity, and the support that we require to continue to do the work that we're doing, then I believe that in another 100 years, I believe and hope that a person like myself will stand in this very spot, addressing a group of women and men who will have never known gender inequality or domestic violence. And I think that the actions that I've outlined, some of those are the next steps towards achieving that goal. Obviously, the messages and the inspiration of other speakers will offer you that too. So it's not impossible, as Sharon said to us at the very beginning. But we need to look to the actions we will take now and in the coming years to effect real change and ensure that all of our citizens can flourish and lead happy and healthy lives in this republic. And I am sure that this is a cause that the Countess herself would support. As Thoreau says in Walden, only that day dawns to which we are awake. So may you be awake, may you be well, may you be safe, and may you be whole in relation.